Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah.
This is funny, man. With our new format, I never really know like how we're going to start or like who's going to start or whatever. We need to like get into the flow or whatever, like all over again. Welcome to the Matt and Rizzle show. This is Rizzle, joined by Matt, as always. No guests now.
Except for me, the robot lady, who you didn't even thank this time.
Dude, we had a great event last week that I know we wanted to sort of recapture, man, and actually met with Johan and Matthias from Meme Explorers earlier. And talked a little bit about like the engagement level from the community and how, like, you know, in a weird way, you know, for a while the whip numbers were like cranking, and you know, in some ways it was like hard to know. It's like, are these bots? Are these lurkers? Like, you know, there's a steady crowd of in-world people, like there always has been, but we were like, it almost felt like we were fish in a fishbowl for a long time to the people who were also present, but not like directly engaged in the event or anything. And now it seems like we're on the opposite side of the coin, where like the numbers are, you know, technically lower if you look in Discord, but the amount of people in world is consistent, and it just feels fun, man. It feels like a family gathering, like especially this last Thanksgiving event, man. And I know you sort of echoed some of those same thoughts.
100%, man. I think like pruning how a show or project operates, I think is really important. Cutting back things that don't work or feel tired or like don't add any real value. Like getting rid of that all those extra parts, I think is really important. And like you're saying, and like what Johan was saying on the call and other people have been echoing, it's like the whip feels way more like family now than it had been for a while. I know at the start in particular, a lot of people, I mean, that's why we call it Whip Fam, because it really did feel like family. And that core has always been there. But for probably the past year or so, like prior to the format change that we kicked off like a month and a half, 2 months ago, yeah, like the family was being overshadowed by like bots in Discord, people coming in for like the free like token airdrops and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But getting back to that solid core, pruning back, I think is really important. And like Brian Flynn, aka Flynn Jam on Twitter, had this comment the other day that feels like we're in the page views era of crypto. And if you're a project or doing anything in crypto and your sole focus is how many users you have, you're playing the wrong game, right? It's all about quality over quantity in this space. You don't need 1 million users to be successful. It's about that like 100 core devoted user or like community members, like friends, family, whatever you want to call them, whatever lingo, right? And that's honestly the essence. And to hear folks hop on the mic last week and voice their appreciation for like the whip being around for specific members of the whip fam, it was beautiful, dude. It was legitimately beautiful.
Yeah, it really was, man. It was hard to like not, you know, get a little bit overwhelmed emotionally, just like, you know, sitting there listening to people. I mean, it's a culmination of many years now, and the numbers aren't huge, but to sort of echo what you're saying about the page view thing, man, I feel like a lot of people are starting to realize that like those types of numbers have been spoofed and are so easily spoofed for so many people for so long. And that's not to say that everybody engages in it, but like, you know, it's like a running joke on Twitter and some of these social media sites, just buying these like big accounts, and like, you know, all these numbers are easily fudged. If you just are looking for numbers to present to people, but it's really, really difficult to spoof actual like community engagement, and the metaverse sort of era, or I don't know what you want to call it, like makes an interesting play, right? Because the spoof bots or whatever really are going to have to, step up their artificial intelligence game to get like a bunch of bodies in world and actually like communicating and interacting and participating with people in a meaningful way. I feel like that's very difficult to recreate and to see it continuously come together with the whip. And I feel like the refocus on that, it feels good, man. It feels like we're giving back to the right people who built the community and who appreciate, what we've done and the direction we're going. And honestly, like, I feel like it was time for a change, right? Like the big, like, run up from the previous bear market to the bull market, and all these like cool, really interesting projects coming into the space that had no way to showcase them. And we were sort of like right there playing catcher when, in the heyday of all of that. And that was cool. And now, the market's flooded in that direction. And I feel like nobody cares about like every new project coming down the pike anymore. It's so much sensory overload and everything. But people do care about the tech and, comparing notes with other people who care about the tech. And there's still a lot of really interesting stuff going on. So, especially within the community, man, we've leaned in. I know we were saying before, we got Steady Breaks coming up, who's like a OG member of the community, for after this week, being off this week. And then Fabiano and, also who's been cranking out these wearables with his wife for us. And, it's cool to sort of like lean internally. And dude,
yeah. And real quick too, just in case people are listening and they weren't at the whip last week, like lest they think we were just having like a lovey-dovey, like, oh, I'm so thankful for everything. Like we were also simultaneously in Monaverse at this sick build, like floating platforms, trying to like sumo wrestle folks to death, like while they were giving things. Like there's levels to this shit that we're putting on at the whip.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's funny to, I don't know. I sort of talk like assuming everybody knows exactly what's going on, but people probably have like no idea. Yeah, there's death involved, of course, along with thankfulness and everything. Dude, you scratched at something though, and man, we talked about Cryptovoxels a lot on this podcast throughout the years and everything, and it's attempting to be sort of a fly on the wall with what's going on in there, but it seems like nothing great, and there's like another round of layoffs and everything. And you had mentioned, we were sort of talking about it privately in Discord yesterday, and said something to the effect that like, we're going to start seeing more of this, like, OG projects within the space that haven't really figured out their pivot and, may stray away from the stuff that has gotten them there or something along those lines, man. And I'd be interested for you to elaborate on that. But leading with that to say, like, I feel like we've made the right call with the whip, man. We've like always kept it as like a pretty lightweight event in terms of like execution and, kept the experimentation and never really went like so hard in a certain direction that everything just falls apart. And it's tough to watch, man. It's like, I take a lot of shots at people and talk a lot of smack and everything, publicly on Twitter and everything. But at the end of the day, with some of these projects, like I don't want them to fail. You know what I mean? I want them to be the thing that we always wanted them to be. And a lot of people always wanted them to be. And it's so difficult to watch as, someone who's just passionate about everything that's been going on up until this point, to see, I don't know what's going on internally over there. So it's easy for me to, talk smack and not know, but I'm like, it just feels like everything is imploding, and it didn't have to be like that. But what are your thoughts, dude?
Yeah. So I guess this all started with like last night, you sent a tweet that BitPixie had put out there. It was pretty cryptic, as some of her tweets about Cryptovoxels and like the leadership sometimes are, right? And like reading down in the replies, it looked like there's another wave of layoffs at Voxels. I'm not sure who was impacted. I'm not sure if BitPixie was impacted or She was just like lamenting about some good people from the team that were cut or caught in the crossfire. Not 100% on those facts, but to your point, and unfortunately, it's just been like a recurring commentary. It's just like the slow, steady demise of Cryptovoxels, which started out as this really fun black and white, rough and dirty, sort of like 70s, 80s era, like Manhattan in the metaverse with all these fucking cool artists running these cool experiments, putting on galleries, people running like quests and stuff like that, right? Think like really properly built together, or seeming like it was built together with the core devs, Ben, Nolan, and crew, plus all the artists and people who were buying up land and building galleries and bringing in people through events and stuff like that. What started out like that has devolved into Ben running experiments, cutting things, expanding the world, like not biasing for like the human element, but for like raw numbers of builders and stuff like that. And like, not simply to harp on Cryptovoxels per se, but it's just like the best example of just a founder who seems to continue to make the wrong decisions and grow further and further away from what made the project magical in the first place. The other example that comes to both of our minds is Scent. When like 2020, April 20th, Scent 2.0 popped up, and it was totally set up to be different than what Scent had been previously. And Scent previously had been the home to crypto artists, to crypto/NFT weirdos who were focused on like the bleeding edge of the tech, what it could enable, fun community level experiments, you know, community art, fan art, that sort of thing. And it changed the product to cater to an imaginary audience of folks from Instagram who would come over en masse and like do Instagrammy things. And the product just had a bunch of technical issues, and like the vibes are totally off. And again, like the project just strayed and moved far too far away from what had made it in the first place. And like I was saying to you yesterday, we're just going to keep seeing this over and over. Projects that try to change, feel like they need to change, maybe pressure to change by VCs that had invested in them during the bull, or they may have their runway running out and they feel like they need to do something urgent to bring about like a change in the bottom line. And unfortunately, like in my personal experience on the builder business side of it, like that normally almost always inevitably leads to a dying project, like especially in crypto in particular. And it's just something we're probably going to have to get used to. But like to your point, it doesn't have to be like that if projects really truly listen.
Yeah. I guess it's sort of like the nature of the beast, right? I feel like, especially during the bull run, you know, you've got all these projects that have been around for a while, probably feeling like they need to do something to capitalize on this market right now. Mm-hmm, like now is the time for them to, see the future and double down and make some big move that's going to, catapult them into the next era. And to be honest, that's something you and I did not do very well. But in terms of like, the whip, or really our podcast, like none of the stuff that you and I were directly involved in, like really, really blew up. But also I think it's paying dividends now that we have sort of stayed the course and not strayed from it. And because of that, I wonder why you don't see more of that, man. I'm like, some of these projects out there that have been around for a long time, like they didn't have to do much or change much to have like a scalable, sustainable, respectable future within the space. But it felt like everyone went crazy and is just like clamoring to like, grow and scale as quick as humanly possible. And, And what's weird about it is it's like, sort of a predictable market at this point. Like we all knew we were in a hype cycle. We all know it's like completely unsustainable, but you still got people building as if it is. And now, like you said, man, I don't see how, we're not starting to reach the end of the runway that some of these projects who were like, okay, we've got, even if the market bottoms out, we've got a year's worth of runway. Well, here we are, like almost a year later, and it's, seems like it's starting to get ugly. Dude, you had mentioned the super rare pass thing, and I've been busy, man, and have a general idea of like how the thing works. And I know there's like some strong opinions on it, but I honestly don't know enough about it to like have like a real strong opinion or to have like formed a hot take or whatever. But you were like mentioning that that's sort of, maybe towing the line, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, man, but, I'm again interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So the rare pass dropped last week, 250 rare passes, I guess led to market in a reverse Dutch auction, ended up grossing like $4 million. The like number one edition was bought up for a couple hundred ETH, I believe. And like the passes entitled their holders to like monthly releases by a really, really sick group of 24 artists. And the artists will be producing, like half of the artists will be producing serialized NFTs, on ArtBlocks, like Matt Cain's Gazers. So instead of like 999 Gazers, 12 artists are going to be putting together serialized one-of-one editions of 250 pieces that they're going to airdrop to the pass holders. And I think 3 artists will be producing like one-of-ones every month that will then be randomly airdropped to some lucky, like 3 lucky pass holders out of that bunch, right? And from a collector's perspective, it's kind of like a cool, easy experiment way to get just regular art airdropped to your address without having to fight for it, which to some collectors is like, that kills the fun part of being a collector, like going on the hunt, like rummaging through the marketplaces and discovering those like hidden gems in the rough or whatever. But the other collectors, it's just a nice thing to be a part of and a way to support crypto, super rare, right? Because a lot of people notice that like, hey, this is a way to, at the very, very end of this year, beginning of next year, have an infusion of capital that the team can then use to help continue to build out the product in a way that helps the bottom line, helps predict future revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And as like a fundraising vehicle, $4 million is definitely not nothing. But then also like in the context of a project like Super that's grown to like 85 people in the organization, Jesus. Like funding that large of an organization is like no small feat. And like speaking as someone at Nifty Gateway, who we have around like 50 people, a little less in our head count, it's like, damn, that's a lot more heads to feed at the end of the day. And $4 million seems like a lot, but really it's not that much. Anyway, that's like point one. Point two is that there's a huge group of people who are like, what the fuck is this? Serialized one-of-ones seems frighteningly close to limited editions, which is like not super rare, right? It's not what the super rare as the brand has come to stand for. And also a lot of artists feeling left out, disrespected. A lot of artists that have been using the super rare and minting there and selling for a long time, like Max Osiris, like Miss Al Simpson, not being included in that group of 24 artists. That rubbed a lot of artists and some other collectors in the space in the wrong way. And a lot of people were calling the rare pass this kind of, I guess, just point of departure from the old super rare to a new super rare that may or may not be linked closely enough to its past, to the community, to the crypto art roots that it emerged out of, or helped form rather. So it's an interesting project, right? Because it has, you can see like the positives and there's obviously some conspicuous negatives. And the open question, and this will be answered over time, will be like, is this a move that is putting Super Rare on a trajectory that's just too far away from its roots? And will that kill it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting to think about, man. And you're right. Something that we probably won't really see the long-term effects until they play out, because I feel like this is a great example, man. It's exactly what we were talking about. Like, here we are in a bear market, different than the bull market, but now we're sort of in the opposite situation where everyone's trying to survive, and instead of like trying to take advantage of the opportunity and do something out of character in order to take advantage of it, now you got people on the flip side trying to stay alive and doing something out of character just to keep the lights on and everything. I can't speak to whether Super Rare is in that type of situation, but dude, also I'm like, 85 people, man, what the hell are 85 people doing over there? Like, some of these, I don't understand how some of these platforms, I mean, scale is a thing, sure. And everyone has scaled to some extent who has been here over the years. And that inherently comes with needing more live bodies to, keep the company afloat and everything. But I'm like, dude, some of these projects started off with like a handful of people, and like, from an outsider's perspective, they don't seem to be doing anything like significantly different than like those handful of people were like a long time ago. And again, I know things get more complicated over time, especially as things scale. You don't always appreciate everything that's going on in the background, but I'm like, this seems like part of the problem, man. Everyone went on like a hiring spree as if like the bubble will never pop. And now like, people are getting gutted, projects are getting gutted.
Yeah, no, it's especially when you take on VC capital. It's like, for a lot of VCs, one of their go-to first things is like, go hire, scale, right? And that move alone, if not thought through very well, and if you're not like hiring very selectively and like in a way that doesn't kill like the original culture, that alone can derail a project and send it in a totally different direction, right? And it's not just like a numbers thing, but you can have like a couple out of like 20, 30, 40 new hires. If like one or two folks in there are just like really toxic for the culture, they could just pollute the whole well, so to speak. It's a huge risk. And like, to your point, and in my personal experience, like, projects can do a lot with a small number of people, as long as the small group of folks are super high performers, are fucking killing it and bringing it, right? And then only when people are dying or like an activity proves itself to be really valuable for the whole project, then you can start like adding heads there as it makes sense, but selectively. Like, you don't need to hire the whole neighborhood and build a city and like all that shit. That's a recipe for disaster, especially if you're not like an operator that's attuned to like cutting people quickly. If they're not like adding value, you're just keeping people on, and then you're like becoming a welfare program. That's also like, again, just another way to kill your runway, which forces you into these corners of doing things that may not be mission aligned, right? And may be done just out of expediency to try to keep the lights on. There's all these key decisions that in the moment don't seem very big or important, but over time, if made over and over, just compound in their either positive impact or negative impacts. And for folks in the space, a lot of whom are like first time operators, I just feel like that's increasing the likelihood and like possibility that a lot of these projects will make these like a series of wrong mistakes and incorrect decisions in retrospect, which is definitely cause to worry. But again, we have, compared to other projects, the community lever, right? Like, just like in a collector buying work of art from a digital artist via NFTs, it's a way to bring those two groups very close together. Users of crypto powered platforms because there's always that financial incentive usually baked in some shape, way, or fashion to these projects, like these users are very, very invested, like literally, and then like emotionally, and provide a lot of feedback and just like signal that should probably be heeded more than it is. And again, like in the Web 2.0 side of things, a lot of VCs were like, fuck that. Optimize for scale, grow. Don't listen to your most passionate users. They're going to hold you back, right? That's a very Web 2 way of growing and operating that I just don't think translates to projects today in crypto.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing that play out in real time. You know, it's as some of these projects who tried to scale are doing so unsuccessfully, and now, you know, having to sort of walk it back a little bit. And it's a shame, man. I feel like now is the time, you know, I'm trying to think of like platforms that have been around for a while who are like, who always like stayed the course and never like fumbled the ball this way. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say POAPs, Patricio Wardhalter's project. Again, like he's insanely well capitalized. May not be the best example, but they've been doing POAPs pretty much the same way from day one, building tools that lets people and projects make, mint, and distribute these POAPs to folks in like fun ways that, yeah, bring people into the space. That's like one example. Can you think of any other projects?
Well, yeah. Well, so I was just thinking, I was like, you know, going back to what we were saying about known origin, I'm like, man, now would be the time where like they really could have cashed in on their reputation, where I feel like all the marketplaces really just fumbled and were like, you know, chasing things and everything. I actually feel like Rarible has done like a pretty good job of staying true to its sort of bizarre, janky, experimental roots or whatever. Yeah. But I feel like they sort of established themselves early on as like a marketplace who is willing to like try anything and throw paint at the wall and see what sticks. And I feel like I was wary of that for a little while, but as they've sort of, established themselves as having some longevity within the space, I'm like, and it's always, there's so much going on. So it's always possible that I'm like, have blinders on or miss something, obvious. So, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm also sitting here, man. I got my other laptop, my old laptop next to me with like my OG, like AsyncArt, sticker on it. And I feel like they've done a great job of staying the course and leaning into the coolness of their technology and what's made them cool, which also made me think of ArtBlocks, who I feel like has done a pretty good job. But now I'm sort of like, walking it back. I'm like, and no shade, Snowfro, and, Conlon and No Shot, these are friends of ours. So no shade on them at all. But I'm also like, is part of the reason why they never fell into a situation like that is because they're almost like a little bit too weird for like mainstream consumption. I feel like, known origin, Maker's Place, OpenSea, like, et cetera, et cetera. All of these marketplaces were like adjacent enough to stuff that normies could understand, or at least like people would think that it was close to something normies could understand. I feel like once you get a couple layers deeper into like Async and ArtBlocks, it's like, y'all, did they even have an opportunity? Probably like a lot of them, but I don't know, man. What do you think?
I mean, like ArtBlocks in particular has done almost like $2 billion in revenue. That's crazy. Insane. Like, again, generative art is, I guess, more niche than other types of digital art. Maybe. I think they've done an excellent job growing their platform and simplifying it, right? They got rid of all those crazy like little sandboxes and streamlined it, got rid of seasons. I think they're master pruners over there, Eric and the team that he's assembled around him. Yeah. And the advisors. I have no idea what the size of the organization is, but I have a feeling they've stayed leaner than most, even as they've like doubled down and built out more robust tech. If they did hire, they hired way more on the tech side and kept the other departments leaner. It's just general feeling. If anyone has numbers, would love to actually know the final head count there.
Somehow it still feels like an indie project though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's been able to maintain that vibe despite doing 2 bill or whatever.
Well, I mean, Snowfro is like a beating heart of that too, right? He just released like a new collab, like the friendship bracelet. And like, dude, shout out on Chain for onboarding a lot of folks to ArtBlocks who then, because they purchased on Chain, were eligible to claim the free, like 2 free friendship bracelets, which crazily after like nearly 20,000 plus mints is hovering around like a 0.1, 0.12 ETH floor. It was like 150, 100 couple like close to $200, right? Which like if you gift it to people that are not in the space, it's like a really valuable stocking stuffer gift. But Snowfro being that beating heart, being in the day to day, like living, breathing, making sure his baby is not being destroyed or thrown out with the bathwater, I think is a huge difference. And he's active in this space versus, I mean, I don't know if Devin from OpenSea was ever like super publicly visible, maybe the early days with him and Alex when OpenSea was just getting started, but he kind of like ducked behind the scenes after like the early part of like 2020, just never really to be seen for the most part ever again. And OpenSea just became more and more corporate feeling and cold and steely, even though they're like, that was always their aim to be like the Amazon of the NFTs and stuff. But so you can see how the interaction by the founders or lack thereof can lead to like a drastic change in feeling and character of a project over time. But like those are old projects. One of the new projects I was talking to you about before we started recording is, and I keep bringing this up, is fucking Monaverse, right? It really seems to encapsulate a lot of the feeling and values and frankly, like the fun factor that old Scent had and old Cryptovoxels had. And the team is so fucking on it. Justin and crew and you, dude, seems to be going in a really, really cool direction and continues to build quickly, iterates, but in a way that's really core. It seems core and like aligned with the mission that they had from the get-go.
Yeah. It's a great point that you made about founders being directly like engaged in their, platform and in the community and everything like that, man. And I think, if you sort of use that as like a measuring stick, you're absolutely right. I mean, you could say that for the Async crew and, just like you were saying with ArtBlocks and you're right, man. And Monaverse is the same, man. Like Justin fucking loves Monaverse, dude. And that makes me believe in Monaverse and believe in him as a founder of Monaverse. He was the first person I met from there, like early on. And he, and Justin, like always like co-signs on my like hot takes and shit. So like shout out to Justin. I'm like, dude, this dude, I appreciate that he like sort of knows my deal and, doesn't give a shit about that. But like, so dude, like, every single meeting, I wonder if he's going to listen to this. I should tell him to. Every single meeting we have, a couple meetings a week or whatever, he's like got his webcam on. It's a staff meeting or whatever. I pop in, you get the update. But dude, I would say 99% of the time, Justin's in some room where he's got like a Monaverse glowing light, like directly behind him. And he's wearing some sort of like Monaverse swag, like literally every single day, every single meeting, this dude shows up like repping hard. And you gotta love it, man, right? Like you gotta love
to see it.
Yeah, you love to see it, right? And like it's not, it means something important to him. And I feel like it translates, man. You know what I mean? It makes other people believe in what they're building and the product and, what they're trying to push and everything. And just, it makes all the difference. And so, I wasn't really thinking along those lines until like you mentioned the founders being involved, in the community and that being a factor. But, it does hold true. Like look at, Patricio from, POAP too. He's out there. You know what I mean? He's like, you can hit him up now and like ask him a question and he'll respond. He like loves fucking POAPs and that's what you want, right?
Yeah. And honestly, like on the super rare side, like Zach Yanger, like John Crane, John Perkins, like the whole fucking team there, they love what they're doing there, which gives me hope, right? They're dog fooders. They love to collect themselves. I mean, that's the whole reason why I joined Nifty too. Like, Duncan and Griffin, Cock Foster, the whole fucking team over here is crazy for collecting and like building shit for artists. And another project that's like on a similar vein, Manifold with Richard, right? They're all a bunch of folks that love to do fucking cool shit with artists in this space. It's that sentiment, it's that feeling, it's that interaction, it's that like co-building feeling that I vibe with the most, and over time seems to produce the best results for everyone involved.
Yeah, I agree, man. There you go. I think we just figured it out. Anyone who's listening, just do the shit we're talking about if you're trying to be successful, or at least trying to get a shout out on our podcast. Dude, anything else we should scratch before we close it out here?
I mean, the Rizzlefest, you put that like a more public tweet out there this week, and it seemed to get like a ton of like cool people saying they're down to hop over to Tennessee early part of next year.
Yeah. If anyone's listening and wants to come with, it's a private pre-sale list, but I can send you the details. So hit me up. We'll show my Rizzlefest, but it's sort of nuts, dude. I didn't honestly know what the actual like response was going to be. But we got 40 people signed up willing to pay for a pre-sale ticket to come to this thing, which puts us just past the break-even point on, costs and feeding everybody and location and everything. So it's like pretty much full stop a go. And I've done like a really like not great job of advertising it, like sort of on purpose, man. I'm like, if we're going to do this thing, I want to make sure like people who I like are going to come first before I just open it up to like a bunch of randos or something like that. And there's like 40 people signed up right now, including yourself and like probably a lot of people who listen to this podcast and attend our shit and everything. So I'm pretty fucking stoked, man. It's like hard to believe that it's actually like coming together and it's going to happen, but we're going to close the pre-sale in the next like week or two and send out invites and start like, running the numbers and setting the thing up. So it's pretty nuts, man, but I'm pretty stoked. And I've seen like, Easy's tweeting out stuff like how stoked he is for like this thing, whatever it's going to be. And I was talking to shout out Sky Bravo, man. He's the one who's been helping me plan this thing and has actually like pulled off some things like this before. And so I actually do have some idea what I'm doing via somebody else who knows what they're doing. But I don't know, man, it's pretty nuts. It feels like people are excited because it's sort of an adventure, and I don't want to say nothing like this has been done, but it's not like super common for this space to just like everyone go camping for a few days together. So I don't know, man. I think the novelty of like the weirdness of the situation is attracting some people, but I think it'll be fun, man. It sort of feels like an adventure to me now too. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, but there's going to be a bunch of awesome people there to make cool stuff happen.
Yeah. I mean, we've also had a couple previews with this, like your NFT NYC offshoot events. We always make sure like the past 2 times to get the whip fan together, crack some brews together, cheers one another, like go off on like little field trips. But this time it's just going to be in Tennessee. It's going to be kind of sick in that regard, like really funky campfires, cabins and all that good stuff. Honestly, in May this year, hopped over to England for a gallery event. And after that wrapped up, I went out to Sheffield and met up with Non-Fungible Luke. Shout out to Non-Fungibles.
Who was on the list for Rizzlefest, by the way.
Yeah, the dude has an amazing property, and like it was funny with him, myself, his wife, and daughter. Like we had like a little barbecue. They cooked out on the grill. They lit a campfire. We're drinking wine there. It was sweet. It was really fun. And we were just talking like, damn, like something like this, getting together good people out sort of like in the wilderness, the sticks like this would be a great time. And then like Rizzlefest is pretty much that on steroids in Tennessee. Like it's going to be a really good time. I'm really excited for it.
I think so too, man. Most of the people who are on the list are like builders, creators, artists, musicians who all want to, come hang out, participate, or, just chill in some way. And it's a big space, there's like a lake and like some, shit to do. And, I'm excited, man. It's been a long time since I've done anything remotely like this before. So again, I'll give it one more shameless shill. If anyone wants to join us, we'll close the pre-sale list pretty soon. So hit me up. The TLDR is, it's basically like $500 for, the 20th through the 23rd at this camp in Tennessee. That includes food and like some shitty bed, and we'll try and make sure you don't get murdered in your sleep.
Selling it hard. We'll have a link in the show notes too. You can click through.
Word.
Awesome, dude.
Well, dude, it's been great as always. Love our new podcast format, and do it again next week.
Oh yeah, man. Enjoy Thanksgiving, brother.
Yep. Likewise, man.
Peace.